I remember a little under a year ago, I used to be what is considered skinny fat. Now, if this is your first time hearing what this is, it basically looks a little like this. Now, why is that a bad thing? So, the reason it's bad is because usually this happens when you have a very low amount of muscle in your body and you basically have more fat than you do muscle. I remember like constantly getting remarks from like my parents or like friends or whatever how, I had like a bigger size belly or like a more prominent belly while, they might have looked skinnier than I did. And at the time I didn't really see a problem with that until I actually got older and started to reflect on, is that really the way I want to present myself in front of people, or is that the way I want to look in the mirror and then see myself? I remember one time one of my friends, he's a bit bigger than I am. He pulled my hand like this and he was looking at it and he was like, "Oh, your wrist is so skinny. You should start going to the gym." And that's when it hit me. Maybe I should start going to the gym. My aim with this video is to get you familiarized with how you would actually execute on your desire to look better when it comes to going to the gym. So my goal with this video is to ensure that you achieve the results that you want through a step-by-step guide, and by the end of this video you will know everything when it comes to looking the way that you want to. So first it comes down to psychology, which is essentially just a breaking down of barriers. So I would say psychology is probably one of the most important aspects when it comes to going to the gym. It's probably more important than diet and the exercises you do. Why? Well, if you don't have the right psychology, if you don't have the right mindset, then you probably won't do those exercises and you probably won't see the results that you want to. So what makes good psychology? So the very first step is you really just want to ask yourself this: are you willing to go as hard as you can to look the way that you want to? And this is just a yes or no. If you said yes, keep watching. If no, then maybe this video isn't for you. The first step is you want to set a goal for what you ideally want to look like. Now, a lot of people I've asked this question to, a lot of the times they'll say that they want to look like this, which is basically just like this skinny, lean, fit look. And I'm going to be honest, if that is your goal, you probably will not see any progress when it comes to going to the gym. And I'll tell you why. So when you want to look like this, or basically like the 10 out of 10 physique, you probably won't look like that as well. But I'll tell you what you will look like. You'll look a bit like this. So you'll actually be closer or even further than your initial goal if your end goal is something that's much greater and much better. And I'll tell you why. So the reason why this works is because when you aim for subpar, you kind of just don't push as hard. So even if it's unrealistic, I'll give you an example. So if you've been in a school system and have been tested before, then you might have wanted to get a high grade or a good grade. What you perceive this grade as is subjective, but let's say for example you wanted to get a 60 on the test. Do you think that you would get a higher mark if you aimed for 60% on a test or 90% on the test? You would get a higher mark if you aimed for a 90% on the test. And the reason this is because it's a much greater goal, so you probably will try harder. And if you do try harder, you will see more success. So even though you might not end up getting like a 90, you might get like an 85 or an 80 or something good. But if you aim to get a 60, you might just get a 40 or a 30. And if you ask any sane person, they'd probably take the 85 over the 40 or a 30. And that's the same thing when it comes to working out and when it comes to most things in life. You want to aim big so that you achieve at least more than what you initially wanted, because this does make you work harder. Now that you got your psychology down, let's talk about barriers. So barriers are a big thing when it comes to getting committed to something because they can either make or break the habit they're trying to build. So ensure that you have access to a gym that is both nearby and or affordable. Free is optimal. So why is that? Why do you want to have access to a gym that's close by and have access to a gym that's free or cheap? Because that'll just give you much less friction to actually do the thing. It'll give you much more reason to do it because it'll be much easier to go to a close by gym than it is to go to a further gym. And the reason why you want to choose easiest is because the way your brain works is it always chooses the path of least resistance, right? And over the short term, you might be motivated, you might be happy, you might go to that further gym, but over the long term, your habits will catch up to you, and eventually you just won't go to that gym, and you'll just end up watching another YouTube video on how to get more committed in the gym. But if you were to choose, for example, like a close by gym, say you lived in an apartment, they usually come with apartment gyms, you would be much more likely to stay consistent and much more likely to actually see results because of your consistency. And you can reflect on this in your personal life. So, have you ever noticed how when it was harder to do something, you ended up doing it but then stopped later on? This is the first thing that you have to address when it comes to being consistent with your goals. And another thing I'd like to add on, during like the summer seasons or just in general, there might be some sort of program for, if you're younger, there are programs for youth or kids that basically allow them to work out for free or like very cheap, or even like students in university where you could get like discounts for exercising. So let me summarize what we've established so far. So now this is you. You're motivated to go to the gym, have a gym to go to, and you have a gym to go to consistently. So once you tick off all of these boxes, now I'll actually take you through the step-by-step guide on how you will see results in the gym. As long as you're going consistently and you're motivated to go, now we can start talking about what you actually do when you're in the gym. So what do you do when you're in the gym? Um, Again, and I can't stress this enough, the main thing is to be consistent. When I first started, I used one of those workout templates online. I think it's called Push Pull Legs. I'll link it down in the description just in case you wanted to do the same thing I did. I just found a workout plan online and I just stuck with it. And I would do it like every single time I'm in the gym. So there's no days where I just do something else. It's just like I stick with it and I do it. So if you're skinny fat, your number one goal is to adjust the levels of fat to muscle. Right now, if you're skinny fat, this is your fat, it's high, and this is your muscle, it's low. So you kind of want to make it like this, right? So you want to increase your muscle, that's your main goal. But the main reason increasing muscle actually matters more than decreasing fat right now is because what your muscles do is actually very interesting. So what they do is they actually take more calories to sustain. So say you had some muscles right now, those muscles to stay there, they would take more of your like calories to stay there, basically, right? This is what's known as metabolism. So when you hear someone say they have a high metabolism, that could mean a lot of things. Like if they're taller, they usually have more cells in their body, which means they need more calories to sustain those cells. And the same thing with muscle. If you have more muscle, you basically need more calories to sustain those muscles. So how are we going to build muscle? So we're going to be working out, but the main thing when you're doing workouts is, for example, you're doing like a lat pull down, for example, right? Your main goal is to actually like feel it when you do it. The muscle group that you're hitting is supposed to basically hurt the most. So say you're doing, for example, bench press. There's a lot of muscles involved in bench press, but you should be feeling your chest more than you feel your shoulders, because your shoulders aren't the primary muscle at work. And if they are, then you're either doing too much weight or your form is maybe wrong. So you always just want to adjust your form. You just want to figure out how you can feel the muscle more. Now let's talk about rep ranges. So this is how many repetitions you do of said exercise. Now ideally the optimal amount for muscle gain would be lower reps. So that would be like maybe 8 to 10 reps for muscle gain. But 8 to 10 reps for muscle gain and 3 sets of that. But when I say 8 to 10 reps, I'm not talking about 8 to 10 easy reps. I'm talking about, for example, if you do 8 to 10 reps, or let's say 8, just to give you a specific number, let's say 8. If you were to do 8 reps, they shouldn't all be like fast. You shouldn't be doing them fast. They should be like somewhat hard. Like the first few, maybe they're easy, but then when you reach the 6th or 7th or 8th one, that's when you're basically like almost failing. Like by the 8th one, you should fail. And what you may think you're doing, if you're doing 8 reps, but you're doing them very cleanly, is not strength, but it's endurance. So endurance is like doing like 20, 30 reps But you're basically effectively doing the same thing because you're not really putting strain on your muscles in the most optimal way for muscle gain. A good indicator is actually this. A good indicator is actually how heavy it is. So, um, if you're going to the gym and you're doing heavy weight, it should constantly be evolving. So, say for example, you do bench press with like 135, right? You do bench press with 135, and then maybe in a week you do bench press with 140 because you feel a bit stronger, right? You'll usually be able to tell because when you do 8 reps, the like the difficulty of it, you'll start noticing over time that it becomes less and less difficult. So that's when you actually start to add weight. It should never be like you should never like master it per se, right? You should never master your weight. You should always be evolving in your weight because um, say you just went to the gym and you just kept doing 135, 135, 135. Eventually, it will just become super easy that it just doesn't even benefit you anymore. It's like push-ups. If you could do 20 push-ups very fast and then you just don't do anything more than that, you'll probably just only be able to do that amount. So you'll hit like a plateau, right? But if you're constantly increasing the weight, you constantly increase in strength. I actually have a friend of mine who started like around the same time that I did, but he didn't really see the results that I did because I went with him once to the gym and his workouts were just very subpar. Like I would see him working out, and he would be supposed to, he used the same program that I did too. He would be supposed to do like 10 reps for example, and they would just be like rapid. Why? Because he just goes in there and puts on the weights that he's used to, and then just does the amount of weights that the amount of reps that he's supposed to, and obviously you won't see improvement if you do that. So make sure that you're actually doing heavier and heavier weight and not just staying at the same level. When you're going to the gym, you want to be looking for new and better exercises. So I did link a push-pull leg split that I used when I first started off in the description. Um, but eventually you'll start realizing that maybe there are other exercises that you could try. So you obviously do try other exercises, like research it, watch YouTube videos, watch there's a bunch of them online. So say you're doing like say on the workout plan it says do bench press. Well then be like, okay, bench press, what does it target? It targets chest. So I'm gonna search up online chest exercises, and I'm gonna find exercises that actually target my chest, but maybe a little bit better. And it just has to be like this constant like improvement thing. So you're constantly just trying to one up, right? Like you're trying to feel it more. You know what I mean? Because you will notice that there are some exercises that you will do that'll kind of just leave you at like a plateau. Like it'll just not feel as good as some other exercises. So you initially just want to stick to the plan. Like you initially want to stick to the push pull leg split. You want to do it for maybe like I don't know, like 2-3 months, and then after that, after you've kind of like gotten the hang of it, you kind of want to like look for new exercise. You want to look for new programs. So say like if you start off with what I linked in the description, that's push pull legs. But if you went from that to, for example, like the bro split, for example, that would you would see more improvement in that because it basically shocks the muscle, right? It shocks a muscle group. Your biceps are still being used to train on pull days, which maybe that's like every Tuesday for you. But if you were to do the bro split, then it would be a whole different thing. I'm not saying I'm not saying do the bro split. I'm just saying that's like an example of like a different program that you could do. So to summarize, you just want to constantly improve on your exercise. You want to constantly find like what hits your muscle group the best, and you constantly want to be increasing the weight. Those are the main takeaways. And you generally just want to like train. You generally just want to train your muscle groups effectively, which most workout programs will do. So push pull legs, you basically train the same muscle group I think twice a week, which is I think optimal for your improvement. So now that we figured out what we're doing in the gym, now let's figure out what we're gonna eat. So have you ever heard the saying that abs are made in the kitchen? Well, that's partially true, because what you eat is also very important. It's like 30% of what goes on um, when it comes to building the physique that you want. So step one you want to do is you want to buy a kitchen scale. So you could go on Amazon right now, search up kitchen weight scale, and you'll find these smaller, like if you've ever used one of the weight scale that you stand on, it's like one of those, but it's like smaller and it has buttons on it. So you want to get yourself one of those, and you want to download a food tracking app. So one of my favorites is Samsung Health. The main reason I'm not using like MyFitnessPal or one of like the biggest apps is because usually those apps have like a lot of paywalls and a lot of features that you have to unlock and ads and stuff, and that just adds a lot more friction. And back to what I said earlier, adding friction for the things you want to do more is going to make you want to do them less. So you want to download so you want to download apps that are more or less frictionless. And the number one goal is to always eat some form of protein. It doesn't matter if your calories are above or less. You may be asking, how much protein is enough? What you can do is you can get yourself weighed. So if you have a weight scale for yourself at home, just stand on it and see what it says. So it could either be in pounds or kilograms. If it's in pounds, which is like the US Canadian metric, you want to consume approximately 1 gram per pound of body weight. And if it's in kilograms, which is like the European and the Asian system, then you want to have approximately like 1.5 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. Now, I'm saying approximately for both of these measurements because it's usually a ballpark. Like, there isn't a specific amount of protein that you should be eating. It's more a range. So, say for example, you weigh 170 pounds, your goal would be 170 grams of protein. So say you have like 190 grams of protein, that's still good. Or say you have like 150 grams of protein, that's also good. It just has to be close to that number. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term bulking, but it basically means that you're eating in a calorie surplus. So as a skinny fat person, your goal will be to eat in what's called a calorie surplus to gain muscle, because muscle is easier to gain when you are in a calorie surplus and are consuming adequate amounts of protein. So you might be asking, what is a calorie surplus? How much is my calorie surplus? I've linked one down below in the description that I used before. If you're going to use that one or any one, it's going to probably ask you for your activity level. Since you're working out like 0 to 3 times per week, I would say that you're slightly active. So if there's an option to put slightly active, or you work out 0 to 3 times per week, you would choose that one. And then once you calculate once it tells you the amount of calories that you should be consuming, that's the number that you're gonna put on your Samsung Health app or your fitness tracker app. So it'll be like a goal, basically. Put it as a goal. I have videos online on how to do this if you're confused, or maybe you'll figure it out yourself. But you want to set your calories to this calorie surplus, because you want to hit that calorie surplus every single day. Now, you may be asking, well, for how long am I going to be eating in a calorie surplus? For how long am I going to be eating more food that'll make me bigger? Well, you're going to eat in a calorie surplus for actually a good amount of time until you've developed enough muscles so that when you cut, they'll be visible, right? So if you were to eat in a calorie surplus for like a week and then do a cut, then you will probably just end up very skinny and you won't have any muscles showing. But if you were to do it for like a couple months, like for example 5-6 months, a year, 2 years even, that's a bit like dramatic, but if you were to do it for that long, then you develop a lot of muscle so that when you cut, the muscles are visible and you're able to see some sort of muscle. And obviously by that point you would have gotten rid of your skinny fat and you would have been lean and muscular, which if you set your goal to be that, then you will. And you want to make sure that and after you do all of this, after you've figured out your calories, you've set it on your app, and after you figured out how much protein you're supposed to be consuming per day, you want to weigh out everything with this kitchen scale that we mentioned before. So say you have like 10 grams of cashews, for example. You want to weigh that out and you want to put it on your app so you know exactly what you're consuming every single day, and it just becomes a much more achievable and much more you basically kind of gamify it because you actually have because you basically kind of gamify because you actually have numbers in front of you that you can reference to and be like, oh, I had 2,000 calories today, I have 200 more. So then you just measure out everything and then track it on your app. And now the final piece of advice, if you've stayed around this long, is that you don't really want to eat in an unhealthy way. So I know I mentioned eating in a calorie surplus. What might come to mind right away is like having like a bunch of like unhealthy food that is high in calories, and what that is called is it's called a dirty bulk. So a dirty bulk is when you have excessive amount of calories from unhealthy food, and usually what that'll lead to is It'll lead to excessive amounts of fat being built up, and you won't necessarily look as good as you want to. So if you're already skinny fat, then I'm assuming that you already eat in a somewhat unhealthy way. So I usually like to blame this on what's called snacking. So snacking or having like unhealthy food around you is detrimental to your success. You may hear the sayings that balance is key, and it's okay to have like a little snack every once in a while. And to that, I'll say balance does not exist. You do have to build the mental toughness to resist even. So you want to have like the mental toughness to resist even wanting to snack, and then that's when balance comes in, because once you resist the urges and once you're able to actively resist the urges moving forward, then maybe you could have like a cheat day and then you could go back to normal because you don't really want it, right? Like you've already built the conditioning in your brain that you're not used to it, you don't need it, you're not reliant on it. And that is balance. But balance isn't having something when you are pretty much addicted to it. So right now, I'm assuming you are addicted to snacking, or you're addicted to eating unhealthily. So how would you get rid of this addiction? So I'm a firm believer in just having absolutely nothing around you that doesn't serve you purpose in terms of what you're eating. So if you're eating food that makes you feel good, um, so this is like, for example, having like chips or something, or having like ice cream, like it gives you like a good sensation because it tastes good, right? If you're eating emotionally like that, then that will be detrimental to your success. So you don't want to have these things around you that you can constantly snack on. So maybe stop buying snacks. Maybe stop going to the unhealthy food aisle in the grocery store. Or if you don't buy your own groceries, maybe talk to whoever does buy the groceries, and talk to them about how you're trying to eat more healthily and that this isn't serving you any purpose. And just not having these things around you will give you basically less distractions, and less distractions is basically less exposure to them, and less exposure to snacks will give you, and less exposure to snacks is obviously less chances of actually snacking, and that will give you a lower desire to actually snack on things. And then if you have a lower desire to snack on things, then you're overall going to be eating healthier. If you're eating healthier, you're going to be achieving your goals. And this will take time, but once you no longer crave it, once you no longer crave snacks, you'll know, and it will be 10 times easier. One extra tip is just don't eat socially, or don't surround yourself with people who are like you. And that's not a bad thing, but it's just like, don't surround yourself socially with like people who are skinny fat or people who are obese, because what that does is they influence you to be like them, even if it's subconsciously, right? So you see them eating good food, you subconsciously start thinking, okay, I want that, and then it eventually just ruins your progress. So you want to surround yourself with people that are where you want to be, and if it's in terms of fitness, you want to surround yourself with maybe fit people, or people that you just look up to in terms of their physique or whatever it is. Always aim to have friends that are better than you in the area that you want to improve in anything, not just fitness. So to conclude, we talked about breaking down barriers. Which means having the right psychology. So actually having a reason to do this, having an actual goal. And then we've also talked about accessibility. So that's ensuring that you actually have access to a gym, and that it's close by, and it's like there's not that much friction surrounding actually going to the gym. And we've also established what you're actually going to be working out on. So that actually means targeting your muscles in a way that you actually feel them, and being consistent with a program and doing it and constantly improving on it. And we've also talked about what to eat. So what kind of food you're going to be eating, how you're going to avoid snacking, how you're going to track the food you're eating, how you're going to eat in a surplus, and how you're going to have enough protein. And so now all that's left to do is for you to apply what you've learned in this video as soon as possible. So don't think about it. If you're thinking, okay, well, I'll start next week, or I'll start in a month, then you probably won't start because you don't have that much incentive to do it. So you could start making plans today and start applying and start doing, and that's when you'll actually see the goals, and that's when you'll actually see the success that you want to see. If you have any questions, you can email me here, or if you want to ever book a one-on-one call with me, link for that will be in the description. Take care.